Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Pollan, a coach, writer, and deeply curious human, and this is Hello Void. This series is a collection of unscripted conversations at the intersection of psyche and uncertainty in 2025. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs, coaches, therapists, healers, feelers, creatives, really anybody who wants to explore what it means to actually be human right now, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. All of this at a time when the world just feels increasingly chaotic, contradictory, and wired for overwhelm. So I'm talking to people about how they're making sense of their inner lives, how they're learning to live alongside emotional pain and uncertainty, and also what they've noticed with the people that they work with and interact with too, because being human is not a solo experience. It's relational. It's bittersweet. It's joy and grief, expansion and fear, doubt and wonder, all of this sitting side by side all at once. And so today I am sitting down with Rachel Quon. She is an intuitive and certified practitioner of emotional body and belief code. Rachel, welcome. You want to start by telling me about you and why you said yes to having this conversation today?
Yeah, thank you, Kate. I'm Rachel Quon, and yeah, I just accepted Kate's invitation to be here. I just love talking with my clients, with other people about, kind of like really what it is to be human, what makes a difference in being human, and gives us ultimately that sense of satisfaction and self-expression. So, yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. So, how has your understanding of what it means to be human changed in the past few years, emotionally, spiritually, otherwise?
Yeah, I think for myself, been on this 10-year journey that just ended. I was taking care of my parents for the last 10 years. My dad just passed in December, and the hardest thing I've ever done, a lot of soul searching, caregiving is a full-time job basically. No, even if other people are helping and supporting us along the way as well. So it's definitely that idea that it takes a village. And I think learning that asking for help, being open to help is one thing that I've definitely learned along the way. And just even what we're doing today, you know, sharing our information with each other and getting guidance and support and that empathy and sympathy that we all realize that we're all in this together. I think it becomes more and more obvious, right? As we try to go out and do things that we care about, we realize it's not always a solo journey. And if we really want to fulfill on everything that we're up to in life, it can't be a solo journey ultimately. So the more help, more collaboration, the better. And I find personally recently that as I'm less stressed, less in that survival mode of being hyper aware of noises and other people's needs and all of that, I definitely get more access to my own creativity, my own timing, like when I want to do something, how I want to do something. So, yeah, tapping into myself is super important so I can connect to others.
I love that. I was trying to find a quote that I had written down at one point. Susan David was on an episode of Brene Brown's podcast, and they were talking about life being bittersweet. And she said something along the lines that creativity is the ability to turn pain into beauty. And that's what I thought of with what you were speaking about being able, like, once you can kind of tune in and find more of that space and the peace inside, it's being able to tap into a sense of creativity that's always been there and maybe not as easily accessible when we're in survival mode.
Yeah, I found that survival mode, people talk about it a lot, this fight, flight, freeze, and fawn modes. I mean,
Hmm.
most people call it fight or flight, but there's actually
There's
more
four,
steps,
at
at least
least.
four, maybe
Yes.
more. And I think people like we just sort of throw it out there like, oh yeah, I'm in survival or oh, it's a fight or flight response, but to actually get that it's really part of our biology and it is hardwired. It's how we survive. However, I find that when I'm releasing trapped emotions for my clients, people, animals, that there's almost like this hierarchy of emotions. And I know like we're kind of getting to that, peeling the layers off the onion when this, we'll clear a bunch of trapped, fear, unworthiness, depression, sadness, whatever it is. And when we get to this, maybe the fifth or sixth emotion, when we get to creative insecurity or indecisiveness, I'm like, all right, this is like it's the tipping point, right?
Mhm.
When we access that, oh, I'm creative, but I'm a little insecure about it. Or I have choices, but I don't know which one to choose. Like that's when I know like we're on the verge of getting out of survival mode, all the trapped emotions, the filters that keep us safe, like,
Mhm.
fear this and be aware of this and, remember this. And once all those are cleared out, that sense of creativity can come back because we really can't be creative when we're just trying to survive. And
Mhm.
what a difference in, and then it comes like, what is our heart's desire? Tapping into our heart, clearing the heart wall so that we can tap into our heart. Other people can get a sense of our heart, and tapping into that heart's desire, our purpose, our passion, and creating our life from that instead of survival. That
Mhm.
huge, because we all have our talents, we all have our abilities, and that's what the world needs. And that's why we're here, is to manifest our personal innate abilities and contribute to the world. So,
One of the things that I think about is, back in the day, whenever you want to consider the day to be, when there was like hunters and gatherers, a
mhm.
lot of the ideas were around finding people's strengths and working with them and saying, hey, you're really good at hunting, so now you're responsible for this kind of thing. And maybe somebody else is more appropriately or happy or whatever language you want to use, cooking at the hearth. And so it was less about you have these weaknesses that you need to fix and more about let's work with your strengths because they're going to complement somebody else's strengths and we can come at this together.
Yeah, that comes to mind. Like, I was a biologist for 22 years, did a lot of endangered species surveys, hiking all over Southern California. And in our department, we had about 16 biologists in our department. And after a while working with people, you realize that some people are good at spreadsheets, some people are good at editing, some people are good at writing, some people are, really good at just whatever it is, right? So, and then going to that person and saying, "Hey, can you look at this or can you help me with this spreadsheet?" Whatever it is. And that's the benefit of living in a tribe, being in a family, community, um, so that we can all delegate, because we can't do everything.
Yes, as
And
much as we
I
may
think
want
that's
to.
where like we get and that's the thing, those triggers of frustration, the triggers of resentment, the feeling overwhelmed or burdened, like those are the emotions that tell us like maybe we don't need to be doing this. Maybe somebody else can do this. Maybe I can delegate it. I can do it with somebody. I can collaborate or I can just outsource something completely, right? So it's like don't spend our time and energy in ways that just don't make us fulfilled and satisfied or slow us down, right?
Yeah,
Just like it took me hours and hours to do something and I could just have somebody else do it in, 30 minutes, right? So, yeah.
absolutely. I feel like you may have answered some of this, and I'm still going to ask it directly. What do you think people are really longing for right now?
I think what they're longing for is that sense of the connection. And I think, the pandemic really separated us. I find that, I don't stand as close to people as I used to. It's like 6 feet, right?
Yep.
So I'll be talking to my best friend and we're standing so far apart, right? So that physical connection, the energetic connection, and, I think social media, all these things are, brilliant and have allowed us to really tap into things that would not be possible just to know that the world, this global community is so small And the other thing I love is that connection that honestly, everybody's the same. I mean, our basic thought processes, our basic cultures, like it's pretty much all the same, right? We just want to have a good life, love each other, be at peace, and feel like have something to contribute. And yeah, so I think that's one thing I've noticed people are longing for. And, we get depressed if we're not connected and feeling like we're contributing. And I think recently I started volunteering with my city and helping people with, most of them are elderly or people with some sort of physical, difficulties where they can't do their own yard work, they can't clean their house, paint their house. So about once a month, I've been helping around the city do it. And in 3.5 hours, we can transform someone's entire yard or paint a house in 3.5 hours. So, and I left the last one I did, I was on such an emotional high. I literally felt invincible to know that in 3.5 hours we transformed this man's yard from a code violation to like a beautiful yard with mulch and a little rock path. And I was just like singing and laughing and like driving home. I was so happy. So I think that like endorphin hit, like those happy hormones, like when we do something like that that is so like above and beyond, especially, it's just like that's amazing. And that's I think it's why we do get those chemical hits is because it's the biological aspect of reinforcing that behavior
Mhm.
so that we want to do it more and more. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, in the people you work with, like in your work with clients and animals, I'm not sure.
Yep.
What emotional patterns or struggles do you see people wrestling with the most?
Yeah, the struggle pretty much across the board for everybody, including animals, is that sense of themself versus other people or other animals. So it's that self versus other. And I just worked with a client this morning and I described it like a teeter-totter, right? Like a balance, like a scale, like there's yourself and there's other people. And when we have too much focus, energy, our thoughts, our actions are too focused on other people, responding to other people, the circumstances of life, we're just getting all this input and triggered by other people, life itself, and we're just not able to tap into our own timing.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, you got to do this right now. It's due in 3 hours. It's
Oh,
like, that
urgency. Yep.
might not be my timing. Like, hey, I got to eat lunch first. I got to feel like I have food in my belly in order to like focus, right? So timing is super important. So it's that how and I think this is one of the things that hopefully we learn in childhood or early adulthood is how to take care of ourselves and balance ourselves with others. And I think that's where people struggle. And then we absorb other people's energy. We're empathic. We feel like we made somebody sad or they're disappointed, and then our energies get all tangled up in their energy. But ultimately, it's that put your own oxygen mask on first,
Hmm.
then help other people. And that just keeps coming up over and over and over again. Like stay in your own lane, so that everybody else can more easily stay in their lane. It's more certain, right? If I'm driving down the freeway in my own lane, everybody else can go, okay, they're in their lane, I'll stay in my lane. But if there's some erratic person, it throws everybody else off, and then everybody else has to, adjust. But yeah, that self versus others is
Hmm.
finding that balance, and it's a bit of a struggle,
Absolutely.
but it definitely can get easier and easier.
So you had mentioned to me before we started recording that you are a practitioner of the emotional body and belief codes. I am not familiar with those. Can you give me the talk to me like I'm a kindergartner and explain them to me?
Sure. So, about 25 years ago, I met Dr. Bradley Nelson. He's at discoverhealing.com, and he was a chiropractor at the time, a couple decades ago, and just wondering like why his clients, his patients kept coming in for the same chiropractic adjustments, realizing that emotions, energies can get trapped in the body.
Mhm.
And now they're scientifically proving this. They have documentaries about it. Heal is a documentary on, I think, Amazon Prime, um, where they talk to all these different, healing modality people.
Mhm.
But now they're knowing that trapped energy affects our fascia, which is that tissue that's all inside our body, goes through all of our muscles. So when trapped emotions get stuck in our body, we feel nervousness in our stomach. We feel that tension in different muscles, organs are connected to muscles. And so by releasing the trapped energies, like it allows the body to reset itself. So that's kind of the emotion code. The body code is kind of everything else. Chords, curses, chemicals, electrical imbalances, color, misalignments of the skeleton, all the tissues. So pretty much any reason why somebody might be out of balance, past
Mhm.
lives, current absorbed inherited emotions, inherited energies. And then the final one is the belief code, which is identifying and releasing an entire belief system. So our beliefs are made out of like lots of different statements like nobody listens to me, why am I always late? All these things that we either consciously or subconsciously believe.
Mhm.
And so it's identifying those particular statements. They describe it like a tree, the roots, the trunk, the branches. So each of those is a different statement that makes up the whole tree. Sometimes it's a single tree, split tree, parallel trees, things like that. So the structure can be a little bit different, and then we release all the associated energies, emotions that go along with that particular belief, like about money, relationships, and that is so eye-opening to go, oh, it's like going, oh, now I understand why my life is this way, or why I feel this way, or why I believe this way. Because a belief is about ourself, others, or the world, right?
Mhm.
So whatever those beliefs are, we can clear those, and then sometimes we add in a positive statement to fill in where those gaps are. But yeah, it's super fun and super eye-opening. So, yep.
I mean, I'm super intrigued and I want to go learn all about it now, as is my way. I love the idea in general of, well, I know, I think we've all, well, not maybe all, a lot of people have known on some level that the body keeps the score, right? That
Mhm.
when we shove these emotions down, when we shove these things down that we don't want to look at, when we try to pretend that they're not there, we think we're getting rid of them and we are not. All it's energy. All we are doing is kind of pushing that energy into a different part of ourselves and it needs to go somewhere. And
Hmm.
so I like all of the work that's been coming up, like as I've been having these conversations with people and everything, that is basically recognizing that. And it's like, hey, we have a different way that we can go about this now. We don't actually have to shove these things down or pretend that they're not there.
Yeah. Yep.
Kind of gives a new permission, in my opinion, to being human. And like the limiting beliefs too is part of that. Like I know in my work, both with clients and with myself going through coaching, we have these beliefs that like we're not conscious of, right? You called it subconscious. Like we have no idea that these are what is actually operating under the surface. And when we can start to actually find those, it can be like, that's why I was self-sabotaging, or that's, like that can kind of help bring awareness to how things are happening so we can choose different ways to go about it.
Yeah, and I especially love this technique. I use muscle testing. Some people use a pendulum, But basically, we were just asking yes or no questions, like what is the underlying cause for this, you know, physical discomfort? What is the underlying cause for this behavior? And so by asking questions, and that's one thing I tell people, there's a difference, and I put it on my website, it's just like this thought I had. There's a difference between, you know, wishing, hoping, wanting, desiring something, and actually asking for something.
It's true.
So it's like the power of prayer, whatever you want to call it. It's like when we ask for something, that's when action can happen. Wishing, hoping, wanting, it's like daydreaming. It's like, oh, it's a thought. I'd love for this to happen. I hope it happens, but it's just kind of like brainstorming is like wishing, hoping, wanting, desiring. But when you actually ask, it's like putting it into words in a clear statement, and then we're open to receive. So it's we ask and then we listen for the response, right? So that's what I do in it with muscle testing, asking is, what is the underlying cause for this? What are the associated imbalances? And that taps into the conscious as well as the subconscious mind, things that we would never know were associated with each other.
Mhm.
As Dr. Nelson says, anything can be related to anything. Food allergies are often just like a negative experience with something, and like you just ate watermelon and got in an argument with somebody, and now watermelon is like into either an allergy or an intolerant response, physical response for the body, because now it's all tied up in that emotional feeling of, survival, safety, uncomfortableness. So, and like
Absolutely.
we don't want to repeat those things. Generally, it's a survival mechanism, right? So it's like avoid that food. So,
Yeah, that it becomes the thing, the representation of what we are fearing or
hmm.
anything along those lines. I'm also thinking too, you had mentioned the idea of asking. Earlier you were talking about asking for help. And one of the things that I had thought of with that is that when we actually ask for help, when we put these things into words, we actually are giving a gift to other people because they get the chance then to do that for us, to be whatever it is that we're asking for in that moment. It gives people sometimes like almost a purpose or a permission. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. I was gonna share. So I'm like a champion type person. I love fixing things. It's why I was a biologist, save the world and the environment and all that. And it's obviously why I do what I do now with energy clearing and using my intuition to guide people on their path and their purpose and get tuned into their own identity, basically. But one it was the weirdest thing. Last week I'm driving around town, going different places, different days, and I would, the red light happens, so there's a driveway, and I just don't block the driveway, right? So somebody can come out. And they didn't take it. And I was like, why are they not taking it? They're like, they're not even looking. They're like playing, looking at something else. They're not even seeing that I left this huge gap. And so I just go. And then like I'll wait for someone to merge through traffic, and I leave this big space and they don't take it. And so what I got is, and they'd go behind me, right?
Mhm.
Where there's less space. It's weird. So I got this thought last week that there's a difference between obligation or self-sacrifice, sometimes expectation that we have, like, oh, if I do this, I'm being a good person, or I'm being polite, or I'm being a good driver, or this obligation of, doing something, or self-sacrifice. And then I was like, but why are they not taking that opportunity? And it's that difference between doing something from your heart and doing something out of obligation. And I was like, oh, I get, because I felt like I'm supposed to do this, right? Like I
Mhm.
should leave a space. I should slow down and let them merge in, right? And they didn't take it. But it was realizing then when we're not doing it from our heart, like gratitude, like fellow human being, please go in front of me, and it feels like an obligation, it doesn't resonate with other people. The universe just is like, no. Like, and the universe will put up these like they're not taking it, things aren't working out, like I did all this so it's like the universe guides us, and in my experience the universe, for me anyway, is getting faster and faster as I understand the game. Like I'll literally think of something, I go to the store and it's on clearance. Or the other day, I was like, hey, I should get a pair of flip-flops. Like, I've never really had a pair of flip-flops, even though I live in Southern California. And I go to my friend's house the next day, and she's like, I want to buy these flip-flops, but I need to buy two in order to get the discount. And I'm like, I was literally yesterday just thinking I need a pair of flip-flops. And she's like, oh, yeah, they're great. They have arch support, all this stuff. So,
I love
stuff
it.
as we realize that we just need to flow from our heart's desire without fear, without that like doubt, like maybe it's not going to happen or maybe it won't, they're not going to like me or whatever that doubt is that creeps in. That's kind of that survival. I
Mhm.
call it the ego. Often I call it's just the ego. The ego just wants to survive. It's not very creative. It's just trying to get from one day to the next, keeping us alive. So when we step back from that or don't entertain that thought, and that we can come from our heart, like the universe just responds so well, like instantaneously.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have many moments like that myself, and they just make me so happy. I feel very
Yeah.
seen and blessed and grateful, and I'm just like, oh, the universe, you are just this amazingly wild and sometimes painful, but always beautiful thing. And yeah, and I also want to thank you for uh, one thing I was thinking as I was talking about asking for help is there is always that sense of obligation. Not always, there's often that sense of obligation in there. And sometimes when we're asking, it's coming from more of a desperation place or more of a you should be handling this. I think this should be your responsibility kind of thing
Mhm.
versus what I was actually going for, which is more of that being willing to accept help from others is offering them a gift. And I think you put it wonderfully in kind of the difference between the obligation and doing things just because you can or
Yeah,
whatever it is. So thank you for that.
you're welcome.
You have a chance for listeners if they want to speak with you for 20 minutes, right? You have a free call to offer people.
Yeah, on my website, evolvingmypath.com, on the service page, I have a free 20-minute call. You can ask questions, get to know each other, find out anything else you have questions about. Does it apply to you? How might it help and benefit you? And then I'll do a little gift for everybody, like a kind of like a half price gift for a session if people are interested in having a session. My sessions are typically an hour. Sometimes most of the time they go 5, 10 minutes over. But yeah, hour sessions. So do about half price on that. So basically a half an hour price for a full hour.
Beautiful. And I will make sure to include links to all of those in the show notes as well. And Rachel, I want you to ask yourself one last thing. If you were to give one last piece of wisdom or advice to listeners, what would it be?
Um, yeah, just get out in the world, notice things, be present, and just practice, noticing when yourself is being expressive versus when you're responding to other people, and really come from your heart that, getting centered and grounded. Breathing technique that I like is I've been told breathing, all different ways my entire life, yoga, Tai Chi, all this stuff, meditation classes. But for me, what works best is to inhale through the nose. So this is my little tip. is to imagine we're drawing energy, oxygen up from the earth, kind of like sucking through a straw through our nose and then exhaling out the mouth. And then when we exhale, there's two ways you can imagine it. We're allowing that heart to expand and radiate as we exhale. And that's just a very like nurturing experience. We can send that heart energy to the body, healing ourselves. Often we kind of keep our heart small, try to cut off that heart mind connection with tension in our jaw, neck, and shoulders. So just inhaling up and then allowing that heart to radiate and expand out through the energy field. The other way is to imagine you're cleansing or purging anything that you don't want from your body. So pulling it all in from your arms, your legs, any toxins, anything that you don't want, suck it all in and then exhale out your mouth and release and cleanse and purge your energy, your body. Um, the thing though is always release as pure energy. And that's one thing that's very important because we don't want somebody else to pick up that energy. So when we do sessions, which my sessions are typically over the phone, but when we release energy, we always want to release and transform that energy back to pure energy. We don't want to send sadness out into the world, despair, nothing like that. So gather it all up, release that energy, but releasing it and transforming it back to pure energy. So my little tips for everyone.
I love that. I do a version of it myself, and the way that I think of it is that I am gathering all of the energy that no longer serves me or the energy
Mhm.
that's no longer mine to hold on to. And in my practice, it's sending it down into the ground to be recycled into love and light is how I look at it. And then there's a version where you will bring in new energy to replace all of the energy that you have cleared out with energy from source, the universe, God, whatever terminology you want to use. And they are very helpful, relaxing practices that you can kind of like, you can do while you're sitting in traffic, right? You can do it while you're having any kind of hard moment. And it's a wonderful tool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that cycle of energy from the earth up and it gets going and it's very energizing and invigorating as well. Yeah, so
Yeah. And
good
very
stuff.
cathartic, in my opinion. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your perspective. And again, I will include the link to your website in the show notes so that people can take advantage of any number of options of ways of working with you and getting to learn more about helping themselves. And for anyone listening, if you want to connect with me or find out about my coaching services, you can find me at followthedopamine.life, on Instagram at followthedopamine.life, or on Substack at followthedopamine. And again, those links will be included in the show notes. And if this conversation sparks something in you and you want to explore what it means to be human with me in all of its bittersweet mess and beauty, I would love to hear from you. So until next time, Rachel, again, thank you so much for being here and sharing all your wisdom.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here. Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah. And for all, thanks for being you. Bye.